After Dad passed, the world didn't just go quiet, it stopped making sense. I'm Erin Miller, 29, born and raised in Madison, Wisconsin. My dad was everything to me. My mentor, my best friend, my anchor. He taught me how to use my hands, how to be a man, how to keep my word. But when he died suddenly last December, 1 minute laughing at the dinner table, the next face down, gone. Something inside me just shut off. The funeral was cold, quiet, and filled with people, saying all the wrong things. I didn't want their pity, didn't need their prayers. I wanted my dad. After the burial, the house fell hollow. Up. The walls echoed with silence. I went back to work at the construction site during the day and kept the lights on in his old hardware shop at night, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. I stopped answering calls, let old friendships fade, ignored birthdays, holidays, everything. Dating, that wasn't even on the radar. I was numb, not angry, not depressed, just numb. Until she walked in. Her name was Emily Carter. It was mid-February. Snow on the ground, sky the color of dirty cotton. I remember wiping dust off a shelf when the door chimed. She walked in like she knew where she was. Soft brown boots, faded jeans, and a navy blue coat that hugged her curves just right. She smiled at me like we already knew each other. Said she was back in town from Toronto where she'd been living the past few years. Said her dad used to be friends with mine. I didn't remember her, but something about the way she looked at me made me pause. There was something warm in her voice, something familiar. I told her we hadn't hired anyone in a while when she asked about part-time work. She just laughed, said she wasn't in a rush, that she liked the quiet here. Before I could answer, she leaned against the counter like she belonged there. You used to chase me with squirt guns behind this store, she said, eyes dancing. You don't remember? I didn't. But her laugh pulled something loose inside me. She started coming by more often. Not every day, but enough to notice. She'd drop off coffee, always black, no sugar, just how I liked it, and I never told her how. Said it was just a guess. She'd hang around and chat while I restocked shelves or fixed old tools. We never talked about my dad, not right away, but she didn't avoid it either. She'd ask how I was holding up, and when I'd say I'm fine, she'd just smile softly, like she knew better. I started to look forward to her visits. Her presence was different from anything else in my life. She didn't try to fix me or tell me how to grieve. She just showed up quietly and consistently. And that mattered more than I expected. Night after closing, she stayed behind to help me clean up. The snow had started again, thick flakes falling against the old windows. We sat on the counter with mugs of lukewarm tea, the kind she said her grandma used to drink. Do you ever feel like grief is a room you can't leave? I asked, not even sure why. She looked at me for a long second, then said, yeah, but sometimes someone sits in it with you. Makes it a little less lonely. I looked at her then, really looked. Her cheeks pink from the cold, her lips slightly chapped, eyes tired but full of something kind and real. And without thinking, I kissed her, soft, slow, unsure. She didn't pull away. She kissed me back like she'd been waiting for it. That kiss didn't fix me. It didn't erase the pain. But it reminded me that I could still feel something warmth, connection, maybe even hope. She pulled back just enough to whisper, "You're not alone, Erin." And in that moment, with snow falling outside and her hand resting on my chest, I actually believed her. Something had changed. My world wasn't healed, but it had a crack of light now. And that light had a name, Emily. Asterisk Emily became part of my life so slowly, it was like the universe had been planning it all along. After that first kiss on the counter, nothing was the same. We didn't rush anything. We weren't teenagers chasing lust. We were two grown adults learning how to feel again. She didn't just show up at the store anymore. It became part of my days. Spring breakfast sometimes, egg sandwiches from the little diner 2 blocks down, where the waitress called her sweetheart and always gave her extra napkins. We'd sit together on a crate in the back room, eating in comfortable silence. Sometimes talking about nothing, sometimes talking about everything. I remember one morning she found an old photo of my dad and me in the office drawer. I was maybe 10, holding a hammer way too big for my hands. She smiled and said, "You've always had those eyes." I didn't know what she meant, so she reached out and gently touched the side of my face, kind but hiding something. It felt like she could see right through me, and strangely, I wanted her to. I hadn't let anyone in since my dad died, not even friends, not even my brother who called once a month like it was a chore. But Emily, she just got it. She didn't push. She didn't ask me to be more than I was. And somehow I started opening up to her without even trying. One rainy evening, I told her how I used to draw real drawings, sketches of people, faces, things that mattered to me. I hadn't picked up a pencil since I dropped out of art school years ago. She looked at me like I'd just told her I used to be a magician. The next week, she brought me a fresh sketchbook and a pack of pencils. Said, "Just in case you ever feel like remembering who you were before life got heavy." And just like that, a piece of me I thought was dead started waking up. We spent evenings together after closing, sometimes talking until midnight. She loved indie music and old black and white movies, and I didn't, but I listened anyway, just to hear. The way her voice changed when she talked about things she loved. Some nights we drank wine on the back porch. One night we kissed again under the stars, and this time it wasn't shy. It was deep, slow, hungry, not just for sex, but for connection. We made love for the first time that night in my room. Not rushed, not perfect, but real. She kissed every scar on my body like it meant something. I'd had casual flings before, sure, but this wasn't that. This was two people holding each other like the world had hurt them and they were finally allowed to feel safe. Afterward, we just lay there in the dark, skin against skin, her fingers tracing my chest like she was writing a love letter only I could feel. "You're so quiet," she whispered. I kissed her forehead and said, I forgot what it felt like to feel close to someone. She didn't reply, just pulled herself closer, her head resting on my shoulder. But even in those beautiful, intimate moments, there were little signs, quick flashes of something behind her eyes. Sometimes she'd stare off when she thought I wasn't looking. Sometimes she'd leave the room to take calls, or her smile would fade too quickly. I told myself not to overthink it. Everyone has their own ghosts. I had mine. Maybe she had hers too. I wanted to trust her. And more than that, I wanted to believe in her, in us, because being with her made me better. She pushed me without pushing too hard. She made me laugh again. Full laughs that shook my chest. She made me want to get out of bed in the morning. She even started helping out more at the shop, knew how to talk to the older customers, knew how to rearrange the front window like she was born for it. One day, she wore my hoodie all afternoon while restocking screws. And I caught myself thinking, this could be the woman I build a life with. I'd never thought that about anyone before. Not seriously, but with her, everything felt different, deeper. Like maybe the world had knocked us down so we could find each other at our lowest and rise again, slowly, together. I didn't know it then. I couldn't have. But the love I was falling into wasn't as simple as I hoped. Emily had secrets? And soon I'd find out that even the most beautiful beginnings can carry cracks you don't see. Until the light starts to fade. Loving Emily felt like finally breathing after years of holding my breath. By the time spring rolled in, she had moved into my house, though we never made some big decision about it. It just happened naturally. She brought her plants, her books, her oversized mugs, and slowly, the place started to feel less like my father's home and more like ours. The mornings were warmer with her in them. She'd wake up wrapped in my flannel shirt, hair messy, smiling like she belonged in that moment. And maybe she did. We'd make coffee together, her always adding too much vanilla creamer, me pretending to hate it even though I'd gotten used to the taste. We were still two people carrying our own grief, our own scars. But in the day-to-day mess, Dishes in the sink, her soft humming while folding laundry, the way we fit on the couch even. When there wasn't enough space, something real was growing, something deeper than comfort. Intimacy was slow burning and passionate. We made love often, but it wasn't about the act itself. It was about the way she looked at me afterward. It's the way she curled up against me like I was the safest place on earth. I started drawing again because of her sketches of her in the morning light, her laugh, her sleeping. She framed one and hung it in the hallway. "You see me better than I see myself," she whispered once. And I didn't know how to tell her that loving her helped me see myself better too. But even in all that sweetness, I noticed little cracks, moments that passed quickly, but still left me thinking. Sometimes she'd get lost in thought, staring out the window for long stretches. Once I found her crying in the bathroom door, half open, mascara smudged, and she just said, "It's nothing." "I'm okay." I wanted to press, but I didn't. I respected her space, told myself not to overthink it. We all carry our own sadness, right? Besides, everything else felt so right. We took weekend trips, rented a cabin in northern Wisconsin, where we cooked over a fire and made love with the windows open, listening to the wind move through the trees. We danced to old records in the living room, drank too much wine, some nights told stories from our past. She shared bits about her life in Toronto, her job. A failed engagement, she said, ended years ago, a strained relationship with her mom. I listened, held her close, told her she was safe now. And I meant it. There was one night that stands out like a scar. We were slow dancing in the kitchen after dinner. No music, just the sound of her humming. And I told her, "I think I'm falling for you." Her eyes got glassy, like tears were coming, but she didn't say it back. She just kissed me, deep and soft, and whispered, "Don't let go of me." That should have been my first real clue. A woman who loves you doesn't say that unless she's afraid of being pulled away. But I was too far in to question anything. I was already picturing a future, maybe marriage, maybe kids, maybe rebuilding the back porch together. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. Emily had brought color back to a world that had gone gray. She made my life feel like something worth showing up for. But every perfect scene has its shadow. And the more I let her in, the more I realized I didn't really know what was hiding behind her beautiful eyes. There were things she never talked about. She avoided questions about her past relationships, never let me meet her family, kept her phone on, silent and face down most of the time. I noticed, but I told myself to trust her. Love meant trust, right? And God, I wanted to trust her. I wanted our love story to be the kind people believed in, the kind you tell your kids about someday. But deep down, a quiet voice had started, whispering to me. No matter how much I loved her, that voice was getting harder to ignore. I didn't know it yet, but the woman I had built my new life around was holding on to something she hadn't shared. And love, even the strongest kind, can only survive so many secrets. Asterisk, it started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. Late one Thursday night, Emily had gone outside to take a call while I was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. Not intentionally, but the window was cracked and I heard her voice. It wasn't the sweet, soft tone she used with me. It was sharp, panicked. "I told you not to call me here," she whispered fiercely. "I'm handling it. Just give me time." My stomach twisted, but I didn't say anything right away. I didn't want to believe that she could be hiding something serious from me. We had built so much trust, intimacy, love, hadn't we? I tried to ignore it, told myself everyone has complicated people from their past. But once a seed of doubt is planted, it starts to grow. I began noticing other things. Her moods would shift without warning. One night she came to bed late, eyes red. I asked if she'd been crying, and she just kissed me and said she was tired. She became more guarded with her phone, started locking it, said it was just a habit. I wanted to believe her, but something inside me had changed. That feeling of safety I used to have with her, it was starting to crack. One Saturday morning, she left early to run errands. Said she'd be gone an hour. She was gone for almost 5. When she came back, her smile was tight, her hands shaky. "Car trouble," she said quickly. I kissed her forehead and told. Her eye was glad she was safe, but her body stiffened under my touch, like even affection made her nervous now. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got out of bed and walked into the living room where her purse was sitting on the couch. I didn't want to be that guy, the kind who goes through someone's things. But love without honesty isn't really love, is it? My hands trembled as I opened her bag. I didn't find much at first. Receipts, some lipstick, a hair tie. But then I found a folded piece of paper, a hospital form. From Toronto. It was dated 2 months ago. Emergency contact. Mark Weston. Not me. I didn't know who Mark was. I sat there in the dark, the sound of the fridge humming behind me, my heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. Maybe a brother, a cousin, but I knew this was the beginning of something I hadn't prepared for. The next morning, I asked her, calmly. I held her hand and said, "Emily, who is?" Mark Weston. Her entire body went still. Her lips parted, then closed. And for a full minute, she just stared at me like I had ripped the roof off the world. "He's my husband," she whispered. That one word. Husband hit harder than anything I'd ever felt. I pulled my hand away like it burned. "I thought you said you were engaged years ago," she cut me off, voice shaking. "We separated. He's not a good man." "I was trying to get away, Aaron. I am trying. He found me again." That's who called that night. It's not supposed to know where I am. I stood up, dizzy. The room felt like it was spinning. You moved into my house, slept beside me, told me you loved me while being married. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not right then. "I didn't mean to lie," she said quietly. I didn't know how to tell you without losing you. And I couldn't lose you." My chest ached, like grief was crawling back into my bones. I loved her. God, I loved her so much, but I didn't know what was real anymore. I walked out of the house that day, barefoot, keys in hand. Heartbroken, wide open. I drove with no destination, past farms and gas stations, and through long stretches of silence. I kept thinking about all the little moments, her laughter, our late-night talks, the way she traced her fingers across my chest. Were those real? Or was I just a place to hide? I parked on the side of a quiet road and cried like I hadn't cried since my dad died. Love had brought me back to life, but now love had shattered me all over again. Emily had come into my world like a gift from the universe, but now I was standing in the wreckage of a beautiful lie, trying to figure out if there was anything worth saving. I didn't talk to Emily for almost a week after she told me about her husband. I stayed at a friend's house, crashed on his couch, pretended like everything was fine while dying inside. My mind couldn't stop replaying everything. Our first kiss, the way she looked at me like I was her whole world, the night she whispered, "Don't let go of me." Was any of it real or just survival? Was I just the next stop on her escape route? Still? In the quiet, in the dark, when no one was around, I missed her like hell. I missed her smell on my sheets, the way she made my coffee, the way she rested her hand on my chest at night like she needed my heartbeat to calm her own. It's wild how someone can hurt you, and yet your body still aches for them. But something deeper told me this wasn't a game to her. I couldn't forget the look in her eyes when she told me the truth, terrified, broken, like she'd finally stopped running and didn't know what came next. So I went back, not with forgiveness, but with questions. She was sitting on the porch, knees pulled to her chest, wearing my hoodie like she never left. She looked up at me with swollen eyes and didn't speak. I sat next to her. "Tell me everything," I said, and she did. Her marriage to Mark had started out like a dream, college sweethearts, road trips, promises of forever. But behind closed doors, he was controlling, sometimes cruel. He never hit her, but he didn't have to. He isolated her, From friends, tracked her phone, made her feel small until she believed she was. She stayed longer than she should have, out of fear and guilt and hope that he'd change. He didn't. She finally left 2 years ago, moved back to Toronto, tried to rebuild her life. But he always found her. Sometimes with flowers and apologies, other times with threats. She thought by coming to a quiet town in Wisconsin, starting fresh, using a different last name, she could finally breathe. Then she met me, and I wasn't part of the plan. I didn't come here to fall in love, she said softly, staring at her hands. I just wanted peace. But then you saw me. And I haven't felt that in years. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My heart was a mess of pain, love, confusion. I wanted to be mad, but I couldn't look at her and see a villain. I saw a woman trying to survive. I asked her why she didn't tell me sooner. She said she was scared that the moment she did, I'd stop seeing her as her and start seeing her as just another broken story. I wanted you to see the real me, she whispered, not just the woman who ran. I reached out, touched her hand, felt the cold in her fingers. And maybe that was the moment I realized love isn't always neat or perfect. Sometimes it's messy, unfair, complicated as hell, but still real. I didn't know what to do next, only that I couldn't walk away. Not yet. So I told her the truth too, that I felt betrayed, yes. But I also felt like I'd found someone I wasn't ready to lose. If you're willing to be honest with me from now on, I said, I'll walk through this with you. She cried then, not out of fear, but out of something else, relief maybe, or love. We held each other for a long time, not speaking, just breathing the same air. That night, we didn't sleep much. Lay in bed, tangled up, touching each. Other slowly, like two people remembering why they chose to stay. The love between us had changed. It wasn't as shiny anymore. It had scars now. But in some strange way, it felt stronger. It's because it wasn't built on fantasy anymore. It was real. And real love isn't just about the easy days. It's about showing up, even when it hurts. But there was still something she didn't know. Something I hadn't told her. Something I was keeping to myself. Not out of revenge or pride, but because I didn't know how. In the quiet, after she fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how she'd react if she found out what I'd done that week when I disappeared. Because I hadn't just been thinking. I had made a call to someone in Toronto about a man named Mark Weston. And the answer I got back was going to change everything. Again, asterisk. The morning I finally told Emily what I had found out was cold and quiet, the kind of morning where the world feels like it's holding its breath. We were sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket, her legs tucked under mine like we were still trying to protect something fragile between us. I had spent the last week watching her, not just as the woman I loved, but as someone I was trying to fully understand, the kind of woman who had survived pain but still knew how to give love. But the weight of the truth I carried was pressing into me. I couldn't pretend any longer. I took her hand gently and said, Emily, I need to tell you something. Her eyes instantly clouded, like she already sensed this wasn't just another conversation. When I left that day, after you told me about Mark, I made a call. I needed answers. I needed to know if I was protecting someone or just getting pulled deeper into a lie. Her breath caught, but she didn't let go of my hand. I continued. I reached out to a private investigator in Toronto, someone I knew through a friend. I asked him to find out about Mark Weston, his record, his whereabouts, if you were in danger, or if I was just another chapter in someone else's story. Emily's face had gone pale. Her fingers were trembling, but she still didn't speak. I reached into the side drawer and pulled out the folder the investigator had sent. I placed it on the table, unopened. I haven't looked inside yet, I said, because I wanted to hear the rest from you first. All of it. No more pieces, no more secrets. And finally, she broke. Tears spilled over, and her voice came out in pieces. She told me everything, not just about the abuse, but about how she tried to report him and the police told her there wasn't enough proof. How Mark was wealthy, connected, the kind of man who smiled in public and made you feel crazy behind closed doors. How she had stayed too long because she believed no one else would ever love her. How meeting me wasn't planned, and how that terrified her even more. "You gave me something I thought I'd lost," she whispered. Second chance at life, at real love. But I knew I didn't deserve it because I wasn't free yet. My chest ached as I pulled her into me, and we sat there for what felt like hours, just holding each other. And then finally, I opened the folder. Inside was the truth. Mark Weston had recently been arrested for fraud, not abuse, but it didn't matter. He was in custody. He couldn't hurt her, couldn't come looking, couldn't call. She was safe for real this time. When I told her, she broke again. But it wasn't fear this time. It was relief, freedom. And I realized in that moment just how heavy her silence had been all this time. It hadn't been about deception. It had been about survival. That night, we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. We made love slowly, gently, like two people learning to trust all over again. Like we weren't just trying to feel each other, but trying to become whole again. Her tears mixed with our kisses, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something steady underneath us. Something solid. Days passed, then weeks. We rebuilt piece by piece. I saw her laugh again, really laugh, the kind that makes your stomach ache. I watched her walk barefoot on the porch, hair in the wind, and I saw the woman I fell in love with, only stronger now. Not perfect, not without scars, but real, honest, brave. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted our living room gold, I asked her to stay for good. Not just in my house, but in my life. Her answer wasn't loud or dramatic. She just reached for my hand, pressed it to her heart, and whispered, "I already have." And that's the thing about love. Doesn't always start clean. Sometimes it walks in after heartbreak, wearing pain like a second skin. Sometimes it brings secrets, silence, even lies. But if you're lucky, if you're brave enough to stay, love will break you, then rebuild you into someone better. Emily came into my life after Dad, but she changed me in ways I never saw coming. And in the end, she didn't save me. I saved each other.